All right, well, welcome to downtown Pensacola, Studio 17. We are here with David Redmond, and we have KNH Inspection with Kevin.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, Kevin. How are you?
Better than I deserve.
So we are recording today. We decided finally, David and I, to name the show.
Yes, I mean, and I have to give you all of the credit and the props. I mean, as we brainstorm and try to come up with something that we thought would be eye-catching, ear-catching, whatever term you want to put on it.
Trendy, catchy, all of that.
Yes.
Yep.
So you hit it out of the park. So since you are the author, why don't you tell us what it is?
So we're calling it Covered and Closed.
Perfect. Love it. Love it.
Yeah, I like that.
In relation of insurance, mortgage,
Oh,
all the different aspect of basically closing a mortgage.
Sure. Yeah.
And
that's
anything
great.
real estate related.
No, I love it. And really, before we start this, and I want to say thank you, Kevin, for coming in. I've known Kevin for quite a long time, and he does an amazing job. And I feel like he's going to bring a wealth of knowledge to the next 30, 40 minutes and really give our viewers, if that's the term we want to put on it, our listeners, a lot of knowledge and a lot of things to really take away. But before we do that, I want to give a big shout out to my Ole Miss Rebels for making the first college.
Yeah, go Rebs.
Yeah,
man.
go Rebels. So,
Old Lane dipped on you, but you know.
yeah, the Lane train pulled out of Oxford.
Hey, we started good.
No doubt.
Where you went to LSU?
With LSU.
With LSU, man.
Oh,
Yeah.
But we still have our first college football playoff game in the state of Mississippi.
That's super awesome, man.
So we're excited about that.
Yeah. Alabama doesn't belong there. As an Alabama fan, I'm telling you that Alabama doesn't belong in that playoff.
Well, Notre Dame has been extremely upset yesterday and today. So it's a you could look at a lot of different factors. You could look at strength of schedule. You could look at all those things. And I mean, you really, at the end of the day, I think we'll have this no matter what in playoffs, is there'll be four teams that probably deserve to be there, and there'll be one or two that'll always be left out. I mean, and that's the problem. I mean, if you want to get in the college playoffs, you really have to be in that 8, 7, 6 number and up to really guarantee your spot.
Or be in a conference. That would probably help.
Yeah, being a conference would help tremendously as well.
Yeah. So, well, that's cool.
All right, Kevin. Well, today, this episode, we would like to talk more about home inspection, 4-point, win-mid, basically the specialties that you are doing and performing in a transaction of a real estate transaction, for that matter.
Sure. No, I'm super happy to be here. My wife is super tired of hearing me talk about water heaters, so I'm really glad that somebody invited me to come do this with you. Yeah. So my name's Kevin. I own and operate KNH Inspections. I have been doing so for about 5 years. Prior to that,
Seems longer than that.
I know, right? I've been in related industries for quite a while. Prior to that, I was a director of sales for a general contractor, and I'm also an all lines insurance adjuster. And before that, I was operations manager. I've been in construction my entire career at some point.
Sure.
So it all came kind of to a head, whenever I was getting into this. And so my job is basically to advise clients whenever they're buying homes as to whether or not this is a good investment for them or not. I don't tell people yes or no, don't buy this house, but my job is to lay it out in very black and white terms of this is what this is and this is what this is and these are the implications of these issues. And so it's more, I'm not there to tell you to buy it, but it's my job to let you know that you're going in there as an informed consumer. So,
well, I mean, from an outside perspective, first off, you would think with that background, that gives you a great advantage, maybe if that's the word, or in the marketplace, to be able to go in and look at a home. And from a lender perspective, we look at it as a home inspector will go in and not really advise somebody, to your point, do I buy this house or not buy this house, but to point out the things that could be problematic before you purchase. Because once you purchase, it's yours, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And so, all the problems now become your problems. And so to be able to address those problems, and I know, the conversation before we started, the points that you want to drive with the insurance side of it,
Sure.
Dialed into the home inspection side of it, I think is it advocates for the consumer to make sure that, hey, you've covered those issues, and not only the issues, but then also to educate the consumer of what to look for. Hey, what should I ask Kevin or one of his teammates when he's out there inspecting a home? And then when we have issues on the home inspection, how do we address those?
Yeah.
What's the best avenue to cure those problems?
Definitely. So whenever you get an inspection, I'm going in there and I'm identifying these potential issues and showing them to you. And it's always best that you take that information, and depending on its severity, in all of my reports, I'm going to tell you to contact a carpenter. I'm going to tell you to contact an electrician. I'm going to tell you to contact a plumber. You know what I mean? To bring somebody else in there, because a home inspection is a generalist inspection. I know a lot about a lot of stuff, but do I have the same depth of knowledge as an HVAC guy? No, but I can look at one and say, hey, there's something wrong with that. I used to work in nuclear power, right? In generations.
So corrosion on an AC unit is not good. Is what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna talk about that. So I sometimes bring this up in my inspections. And I used to work in nuclear power generation. I used to work for a company called DZ Atlantic, and we would run shutdowns at nuclear power plants. And so everything in those places was like extremely safety driven, and they had this thing they called the STAR method, and it stands for stop, think, act, review. But I changed it up a little bit for home inspections, and it means shit, that ain't right. So I'll take a look at that and be like, we probably ought to have somebody take a look at that. You know what I mean? And so from there, you can move on with it. And it's the things that are found in home inspections, they can be inconsequential all the way up to like this house should be better pushed over than to buy. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But that's basically what it is. Go in there and just try to have a heart-to-heart with people. Like I've been construction project manager. I've had all these other titles in this industry. So like I'm not one of those guys that goes in there and like thumps their chest. I am home inspector. Hear me roar, and I'm going to make a huge deal out of all this. At the end of the day, it's all drywall. It's all wood. It can all be fixed. You have to bring it into like perspective of what that buyer is willing to take on. You know what I mean?
Correct. Especially that it's going to affect your insurance.
Definitely.
Your insurability, right?
Sure.
Whenever you look on the roof, you look on the hot water heater.
Right.
You look on permits being pulled, plumbing.
Yeah.
So we're talking about things that we probably will see on a 4-point.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to give us just an example of, how about that, the weirdest inspection you've done for a 4-point inspection that sticks out really fast?
Well, I mean, there's the skunk story, but I may hold on to that one for maybe a little after hours podcast. But all kinds of crazy stuff happens. I've been on houses when I look at the roof and they've been neglected for many, many years. I've seen them with plants growing on the shingles, like trees growing on the roof, and it's organic shingle, but calm down.
Which is crazy because you'll go out and plant a tree in your front yard and water and fertilize it and it dies, and now you got something growing on the roof.
I got a magnolia that won't move, man, and this guy's got an oak tree growing out of his gutter, you know what I mean? So it's crazy.
It happens. I've seen them.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen all these pictures that he's talking about.
Mm-hmm. And oftentimes, like in neglected homes, or the weirdest houses to inspect aren't the ones that are particularly neglected. It's where the old timer that lived there was handy, and because then that's where like there's wild stuff all over the place. People cutting extension cords and running through walls as like permanent wiring, or I've seen conduit used as plumbing, and sewage just dumping out in the yards, all kinds of stuff. Like I can certainly tell you that at this point in my career, I've stopped wondering why, and now I just say there it is.
There it is.
So that's what it is. I see wild stuff every day, and like I said, if I really dug into my Rolodex of interesting inspection finds, we'd probably
have to do a lot of bleeping right now.
You'd have to
Sure,
change the rating on here and maybe get some bourbon involved.
Maybe sometime next we'll probably try to consider that.
Sure.
To come.
Yeah.
But so we talk, 4-point wind mid, right? And there is a home inspection as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've done it all,
Yep.
right? Now, from the consumer perspective, or somebody is buying the house, who usually order all these services?
So oftentimes what'll end up happening is people rely on their real estate agents to have connections in the industry who know these people or whatever, and then oftentimes credible real estate agents will give them an option of 3 people that they would recommend, and then people pick it out from there, whomever they want to use. Picking your home inspector is extremely important, because not to rag on my profession, but it doesn't take a lot to be a home inspector. You know what I mean? There's not any like real educational background required. There's no professional, you can go online and take a 120-hour class, pass a test that's honestly like criminally easy, and then go advise people on the biggest expense they're ever going to have in their life. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, to his point, I've seen so many inspection that comes through our desk, and we just don't understand how they didn't either flag it or advise the consumer on what is the potential of damages.
Yeah.
Well, from a lender perspective too, we've looked at a million of them as well. And it's funny that Kevin says that, because you'll have some home inspectors that will go out there and they will literally notate every little thing. And then there's home inspectors that'll go out and there's just major things that are missed that are either picked up on the appraisal, or then back to your point, correlates to the insurance when you go do the insurance inspection.
Correct.
And you have those problems. So from a consumer standpoint, I would think that the home inspection would be extremely important, not only to pick out the right individual, and obviously that's why we have Kevin, representing his company here, but also how that correlates into the cost of insurance, the quality of purchase, all those things that are really, really important, because you're really the frontline guy. I mean, because there's a lot of transactions we've done on the real estate side or the mortgage side that they'll start the process with us. They'll order a home inspection and then they'll cancel that transaction because the house just isn't what they thought it was, what it was.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, I don't go in there trying to close off a deal, you know what I mean? But sometimes the house does it. It's not necessarily the words that your inspector uses, but it's super important that you have somebody who can speak in like clear and language that's understood. But it's so very, very important, and especially like when it comes to the insurance stuff. Like, if you don't know what you're looking at when it comes to like the wind mitigation form, there's 7 questions on that form, and if you mess that thing up, you could cost people thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Or somebody being lazy and forget to look up a permit number, and now whatever check mark they do, it doesn't matter what year it is if you don't have a permit number.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, like, being able to, and not only that, like having the relationships with the municipality to be able to get your hands on that stuff if it's not available online. You know what I mean? And being able to call your buddy and say, hey man, what's going on with this, or what does this mean?
Well, the thing from the lender side of it, and of course we're covering home inspection and the insurance, is that a lot of these things aren't a problem until they're a problem, right?
Correct.
And then once they are a problem, then they are a problem.
Yeah.
And so you want to stay ahead of those problems, not chase those. And that's where the home inspection, I think, becomes vitally important in the beginning of the process.
Yeah.
Sure. Again, from the insurance perspective, because we depend on these reports, and a lot of times we see different methods of delivery of the inspection itself, right? Some of them may forget to include the pictures that is required. Yeah. They forget to do the signature on the actual inspection, which is not acceptable. Right. And then good luck trying to chase it back. So that's why we always advise, make sure you do your research on the inspection company that doing these inspection and these report for you.
Yeah, no, and I mean, like, I know from y'all's end, if y'all get a bad report and give it to a carrier, they're going to ding you for wasting their time, right?
Sure.
And so, I mean, like, that's all stuff that matters. And really, and like I was saying earlier, like the training that a home inspector has is all online, and it's all, computer-based training, and there's so much of it that's just garbage, and so my wife is currently getting her doctorate in instructional design, so we've kind of been building a home inspection school on the side. So if any home inspectors listening, call me and I'll teach you how to do them right. but getting involved in like a good local organization. So like in Florida, there's FABI, which is the Florida Association of Building Inspectors, which I was voted the top 4 inspectors under 40 in the state of Florida by them. Just throwing it out there.
Whoa, but congratulations! There you go. Look at that. We have a celebrity here.
Yeah. Let's talk water heaters, baby. But having like a good, there's great national organizations like Internachi or whatever, but they hand out the certifications like their merit badges. You know what I'm saying? And so, but like if you link up with somebody like FABI, and FABI has inspectors from Florida and representatives from Tallahassee, from the insurance companies that are involved in it, and teach you how to fill these forms out correctly the first time, because that's what's happened. And I don't make money on a 4-point if I have to touch it more than once, so I don't want to.
Correct.
Well, you bring up a really good point. So I'm Mr. Consumer out there, right?
Sure.
And so I'm starting this process. What would you say or give advice to me to do your due diligence to find the right guy, to find the right home inspector? Obviously, yes, you have the referral side of it. You have the warm handoffs. I mean, is it online reviews? Do you get complaints through the state? I mean, what would the consumer really want to focus on to do their due diligence to make sure they not necessarily got the right guy, but they don't get the wrong guy?
Sure. And I mean, like, honestly, just hopping on Google, you can, the guys that are serious about this business, take the time to invest in that online presence. So like, they're going to have Google reviews available for me, and you're going to find some bad reviews on there.
You can't make everybody happy.
No.
Yeah.
I tell people I've got 253 people that love me, and one person thinks I suck. So that's just the truth of the matter,
Sure.
So, but going on Google and finding that, and then going, seeing if they have a relationship with an association, like whether it be Internachi or Fabi, obviously, hopefully Fabi, because like they require you to be in online classes and stuff like that. But you want to check on that stuff. You want to look at their online reviews, and check their association's website to make sure. And then also there's a lot of soft skill involved in home inspections too. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could have the best, I never miss anything and I deliver my report within 24 hours. But like, if you can't communicate that in an effective manner, then you're not really good at it. Your bedside manner is super important in this business.
So there's a really high quality of saying you need to communicate with the advocate, with the insurance company and the consumer, the buyer, seller, and agents to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Sure, yeah, you need people with good relationships in the industry that can help you, either get your deal pushed through or advise you how to either stop it or what I'm saying,
Well, that brings up another great question as I sit here, because I'm looking at it really from the consumer side. And so, Wadih, maybe it's a great question for you, is like, from the insurance side of it, what do you see from an industry perspective or maybe an individual policy perspective, home inspections, how they correlate, and what are some of the obstacles that you guys have to jump over or maybe look for to make sure that the home is going to fit the box?
Sure. So one thing we need to be clear about, there is a home inspector, but every insurance company these days, they're sending their own inspectors. And
an inspector behind the inspector.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because to his point, it is not as regulated, right? You just go to the online class. And that's why actually I wanted to ask Kevin, is there any different credentials that we can advise a consumer outside just the license, or you just got a license and that is it?
Yeah. So, I mean, like, as far as that goes, it would be, are they a member of a reputable association? Because like I said, like, home inspection, and given the current political climate in Florida, like, there's zero chance of them regulating that any harder than it already is. So, which is crazy, because Alabama, like, you got to like shadow people for like a year before you can get that license over there.
Oh, wow.
It's much more difficult. And
and why do you think that is? Is it just state law driven, possibly, or
Florida wasn't? There's still states in the United States that don't require licenses at all.
Wow.
So, but it wasn't until lately relatively lately, that Florida required you to be a licensed professional on it through the DBPR. Sure. So,
which is really crazy from if you're just listening to this and you're not in any of our industries, to think that one of the most important pieces of the transaction, which is a beginning inspection, you're not even having to be licensed, prior to. And that also, goes back and really reflects on the thought process. Hey, it really weighs on the fact that you need to get the right guy.
Sure.
You need to call on somebody of Kevin's quality and integrity and then reputation in the community as well.
Yeah.
Because it's that important.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. This is back when the roof inspection and roof age has changed, and it started to affect the industry. And then, you have to inspect the roof on part of the inspection. I had a friend of mine that bought a house. She got a home inspection. They put the roof that it meets the guidelines in a year for that, how many years life expectancy. Well, the insurance company went and inspected it. She closed on the house, and usually the carrier inspection is 30 days after closing.
Yeah.
Not before closing, after closing, right? And now, all of a sudden, she gets a letter from the insurance company telling her that the roof is not in the best condition, right? And she has to replace the roof. Well, now we're talking about somebody just put, it was a conventional loan, 20% of the value of the loan, big chunk of money. and now she has to pay X amount of money.
I mean,
to
minimum
replace
10
the
to
roof.
25 grand.
Correct, right?
Yeah.
She was crying on the phone.
Well,
This is something that sticks
financially
into me
devastating.
It
Yeah,
is.
no,
It
yeah.
is. So that's why it is very important to choose the right inspector. Again, we're not rolling anybody under the bus, and we're not giving names, but some inspectors are very creative on sometimes how they take the pictures, right? They never take.
I think there's a lot of people on social media that are really creative on how they take their own pictures too, by the way.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's just that's why it's very important, like, to deal with a professional.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
you don't
no
end
doubt.
up with the surprises afterward.
And as that goes, like having the integrity that goes along with it, and having somebody that's an advocate for you in the back, because there's plenty. Because when the 5-year thing was going on with the 4 points, where like they needed 5 years to bind insurance or whatever, people were writing 5 years to get the deal pushed through, and then the homeowner goes in there, thinks they're happy. Well, then 6 months in your policy, Citizen says, well, now you only got 4 years and 6 months left. You need a roof, and we're dropping you. You know what I'm saying? So like it goes through there like that. Now people have got to buy a $15,000-$20,000 roof.
And as we're kind of on the roof topic too, I mean, from your perspective on insurance and home inspections, the lender kind of takes everybody's word for it at the end. We take your inspection, the appraiser comes in, the insurance does their thing. What would be something that the consumer, outside the life expectancy of the roof, right? Because there has to be a certain life expectancy. What would be one of the things that you would see from both your perspectives is probably the most problematic when it comes to roofs? Is it straps? I mean, that's been what, recent, since Ivan, 20 years maybe?
So right now we're talking mainly the straps is more onto the engineer and basically the hurricane wind load.
Okay.
A lot of times right now what we're talking is just the surface of the roof, which is the shingle and the granula, and the way the
Life expectancy of what this
correct
okay.
the shingle is drying out, is dry rotted, or the wrong nailing patterns or whatever. I mean, I'm sure you've seen all different kinds.
No, I mean, there's lots of
And
things.
what happened is, it doesn't hold to the same rating of wind rating that is supposed or expected to withhold, and that's the problem that we're seeing.
What is the minimum wind rating?
That's a question.
140 miles an hour.
140 miles an hour.
So
okay.
that's how it should be. You know what I mean? And if it's got it was March 1st of 2003 is when wind code for Miami-Dade became code for up here. You know what I mean? So after that, that's when everything needed a Florida product approval code on it that showed that it was wind rated and things like that. And then that's actually whenever strapping became a thing. And there's like several different ways you can strap down a roof to change the rating that you'll get. Just because you have clips doesn't mean you're getting the highest rating of uplift, I mean? And I can go deep into that, but as far as like your roof condition, the aggregate, which would be the colors that you're seeing, the granulars on top of there, are actually there to protect the asphalt underneath it, because the asphalt will then get damaged by UV and it'll crack and
dry out
and to dry it out, and that's where you start to have those problems. And the best thing that you can do, particularly if you're like in you should spend the extra money and get the peel and stick membrane put down on it. You know what I mean? Instead of doing the synthetic felt, because like your roof's not going to leak with that on it, and over the lifespan of the roof, you're going to make that money back.
Oh, 100%.
And I would think from the insurance side of it, I don't think there's any bigger enemy out there than water.
Yeah, water is number one driven claim.
Yeah.
Yeah, water's. In my social media videos, that's what I say. I say water's the most expensive thing that can happen to a house, because not only do you have a water problem, you know what I mean, and then with water becomes mold and rot and WDO concerns and things like that, and so like all that stuff kind of snowballs, you know what I mean, because termites need water to do their thing, and then mold, it can't grow if it's dry, you know what I'm saying? So, and that opens up a whole nother bag of worms, whether or not it's a mold claim or a moisture intrusion claim, you know what I'm saying? Depends on what kind of coverage would be opened up in that. So water's definitely a water claim in a savvy, less scrupulous contractor's hand can turn into hundreds of thousands of dollars.
It can be.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, it's amazing how something that minor can become that major very quickly.
Oh, absolutely. Another thing that we want to talk about on the positive side.
Yeah.
We want to talk a little bit about home hardening. And if you can tell us what I mean by home hardening and what kind of program it exists.
Sure. Yeah. So there's My Safe Florida Home is the name of the program. It's been going on for a few years right now. The chinchillas out of like Central Florida are the ones who are in charge of it. But basically what it is I guess to give just like a rundown on what a wind mitigation is, it's the form is put in place by the Office of Insurance Regulation in order for carriers to give discounts to citizens of the state of Florida to reduce their premiums depending on actions they've taken to wind harden their homes. So whether that be window coverings, or clips, or the shape of your roof and things like that. So basically, my Safe Florida Home, you can go in there, and they'll send one of their inspectors in there, and they'll take a look around, and then they'll write there. It's a much more involved wind mitigation that they write, and then so from there they'll make recommendations on what they can do to your house to help wind harden it, and in turn lower your premium. And they're matched in 2 to 1. So I think for your $5,000, they'll give you $10,000. I know my cousin Dan just got impact windows put on his house that's over there on the bayou over there off of Garcon Point.
Yeah, windows are not the cheapest item in the house to replace either.
Correct. But let me tell you what we see a lot of times. Because of the amount of the money, the maximum they can get, they do, let's say, the windows, and they may not have enough funds to do the garage door and the entryway. And if you don't do, or let's say if you have a skylight, for example, right? All of these entry points that have glass have to be certified that is a hurricane resistant, or else you will not get the full credit.
Yeah, no, it's a thing. I have met plenty of pissed off homeowners that call me after they got their windows done because somebody talked them into only doing the front side of their house.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, you just spent $25,000. You still don't get the credit because the back side of your house isn't done.
Correct.
The one of the
That's interesting.
So it's any opening has to be hardened.
Well, I mean, that I think that really kind of digs into the driver of what we're doing here right now is trying to educate the consumer, to let them see, kind of buyer beware a little bit. These are things that you've seen. These are problems. And to your average homeowner, including myself, I mean, I have a window company tell me just do the front and I'm good, right? And I'm not.
No.
Correct. No. Call an inspector that you know.
Yes.
Call your insurance agent, talk to them, and then get educated about it before you commit to any program.
100%.
Right. Another thing I would like to bring up now, again, this is where us talking.
Yeah.
What do we think about a 50-year shingle?
They don't exist in the state of Florida. You know what I mean? That's it. Actually, there was a client that I had through your office one time over there, a big prominent person over there in Pace, and they had what was a 100-year shingle on that house, and so and that roof looked fine because this roof that was like a composite shingle, like made of ground up tires or something. It was crazy.
Wow.
And it was like $100,000 roof, and the age went over on it, and I'm like, that's fine. This roof is cool at 25, and then at that particular time in the insurance market, they were like, doesn't matter, replace it.
Correct.
And
it does not matter. They go by strictly the material that is used. Right.
We could kind of get a little more detailed in that.
So I mean, I'm not a builder. I'm not even not an inspector. I'm in the insurance side. But what we see, you have different type of shingles. You have, your regular composite shingles. You have your metal roof and tile roof and flat roof. A lot of times, the least amount of life expectancy is gonna be for your regular shingle. Right, shingle roof, and we used to have a 3-tab. I don't think if they're installing
they don't
them.
make 3-tab shingles anymore. It's actually caused a big stink after Sally because no contractors could get their hands on them, so they ended up with a gap in coverage.
Correct. So that, and then you have the 3D architectural shingles. That's usually on your higher end. Now since we talked last episode about soft market, right? We are in a soft market. What that means, a lot of carriers are going back. Again, they're still inspected, but they're changing a little bit their guidelines. They were a hard stop at first, started only 10 years. Then they moved it up to 15 years. Now we're seeing carriers entertaining the 20-year-old shingle, right?
Okay.
So we're starting to see a little bit of improvement from a roof perspective, right? And then,
that's going to correlate for the consumer in cost, is correct?
Correct. Yeah, or insurability for that matter. Like, let's say if you're buying a brand new house, not a brand new house to you, right? And it's an older home that has a roof that it is 15-year-old, right? Now, before it was a hard stop with some carriers. No, we don't want to entertain it. Don't even send it to us. Now, because we're coming back to a soft market, they will ask, well, can you give us a roof certification from a licensed roofer that give us the safety of mind that it does have the 5-year life expectancy, to your point earlier.
Sure.
And some of them may say, send us picture, we'll take a look at it. If the inspector said it's good, we're good with it because they want to write the business.
Yeah.
If you go back 2 years, 3 years ago, that was a hard stop.
It was painful working with them.
Yeah. So that's on the roof side. The other thing is, we were joking about hot water heaters.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's try water heaters, boys. So yeah, no, I mean, and I think that it might be different from carrier to carrier, but typically it's in my paperwork. I'm going to say that any appliance like that should only be expected to last lifetime or through its warranty period. And that's what I say on them. But I think that most carriers have like a 12-year or 15-year cutoff mark on water
it
heaters.
varies between 12 to 15.
Yeah.
And it depends on the location of the hot water heater. Some of them may give you an exception. If, let's say, it is at the 12, 13-year-old mark and it's hard stop at 12 or 15 for that matter. And if it is in a garage where, a lot of times the slab of the garage itself and the house foundation, there is an elevation, right? Then in case it floods or in case you had a water leak, it's not going to penetrate to the house. So they don't have that much to lose.
So the biggest concern, really, from an insurance perspective, is the water heater going to bust and flood the house?
Yeah,
Sure.
Because again, we talked about water is the number one concern.
Yeah.
That's what they're concerned about.
Yeah,
Right.
makes sense.
And then now from
Not the functionality of it. That's what the consumer would really be thinking about, the functionality of it. But it's really the amount of damage it could cause.
Is it going to result in a claim?
Correct. Is it gonna bust? Is it gonna start leaking? Does it have a shut-off valve? All of these, have, because I don't know too much about the building code. I don't know when the shut-off valve was enforced, but is it around the 12, 15-year mark?
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, like there's stuff about water heaters that, being able to shut it off at the equipment is just good practice for safety reasons. And then also, while we're speaking about valves, the TPR valve is something that's asked for specifically on the 4-point, and that's a temperature and pressure relief valve. And it's actually the most important valve in a house because it will tell you that if this water heater is getting too hot or overpressurized, and it'll start to drip. And then that's like, hey, I need somebody to get this water heater out of my house because. And I mean, like, not doom and gloom.
That's a good thing. Hint. This is a good tip.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, like, and like from an agent's perspective, like being able to walk through a house and see potential things that would like, okay, this is going to be a 4-point thing, or like this right here might be something big that might want my, like, because like the sales cycle for selling a house, I'm not a real estate agent, but I have been in sales for a long, long time. So I know that like trying to get that deal to close, you don't want to sit there and spin your wheels on something that's going to fall through at the end of it anyway. So like being able to look around and see what's going on, and you can always call me. But
There we go.
There's the part.
There we go.
But
Took him about 30 minutes to get comfortable enough to throw it in there. I like
just
it.
tossing it in there.
Wish we did get a roll tide behind it.
Oh man, I've been kicked out of an Applebee's. So but yeah, no. So like that TPR valve is a big deal. You know what I mean? And like if it doesn't have that pipe on it, most people walk by and not even know it. But like there's a purpose for that pipe, and it keeps scalding water from blowing on you if it happens to pop off when you're there. You know what I mean? Or it should exist together because I mean water heaters can explode. I mean you can Google it and they like kill people. So like it's a big deal. Yeah, and so. That's
I know we're coming up to 33 minutes and we
Sure.
always try to keep it around the 30. But another question, this
Sure.
is from the insurance perspective. Again, I really don't know the answer to that. But it has always been an issue. How many homes are you still seeing that still have aluminum wiring?
That's a great question.
No,
by
that's
the
a great
way.
question. That's an awesome question. So, and actually, I can, I know we're pushing time, but oftentimes, you're going to see them during the fuel crisis when they were built. Usually in the 70s, late 70s is when I see those houses. It's not very often, and usually, like it's only like a couple circuits anymore that I see it. Very rarely to open up and an entire house is still wired like that. But one thing, the 4-point form changed in 2025, and so it asks specifically if there's multi-strand aluminum in a house. But multi-strand aluminum isn't problematic, and it's installed in every house in Escambia County. But sometimes I've seen underwriters get really wrapped around the axle about it, you know what I mean? And then I have to write like a letter saying, hey, this is the same thing.
Well, they hear aluminum wire. So
Yeah.
Correct.
100%.
Right.
Correct.
You know, and so without getting like super nerdy on aluminum wiring, I don't really see that much of it anymore. And actually, I've even seen aluminum wire installed in new construction when it's used
On the 220 side.
Yeah, for when it's not a branch circuit, you know what I mean? So it'd be like a home run to a water heater or a home run to a you know, something like that.
Sometimes from the pole, the main line to the actual house that feeds the actual electrical panel.
Yeah, the neutral, the bare wire that you see like coming down from the transformer of your house, that's the neutral. That's bare, and that's multi-strand aluminum, and that comes into your service panel.
Oh.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, because it's been a topic for the last 10, 15 years. It's not something
It's been a
new.
topic for
It's
quite a while.
expensive
Yes.
to remediate, and I mean, like but like believe it or not, I've heard of inspectors missing it. Like I don't know how you open up a panel and not see aluminum wiring right there in your face.
Yeah, I'm trying to actually literally. I'm sitting here thinking about it. Since we've been talking about it for so long, is there any homes that still exist with it?
I
Or
occasionally see them.
yeah, so it's
Myrtle
not the
Grove,
same. Okay.
Myrtle Grove,
Yeah.
and Navy Point. You know, houses over there.
Something the 70s driven, but basically.
Yeah. Somewhere around there. That's where I usually see them. The houses in East Hill are usually too old for it, you know, and that's the thing. Like you can get too old for it, and then obviously more recent will get away from it as well. So.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a period of time where that was always a big issue in the mortgage side too.
Oh yeah,
because of
absolutely.
insurance.
Yeah.
You couldn't get insurance.
Correct.
Wow.
I mean, it's still actually it's still a hard no on a lot of carriers. I think I only have maybe one carrier that will accept it, and they prefer to have the basically what do you call them, the Alumacon.
Alumicons, yeah. So yeah, they make like it's like a Wagyu fitting, but they plug into each other. The thing is that like residential electrical vibrates at 60 megahertz or whatever, you know what I mean? And so like the aluminum vibrates differently than copper does, and it'll cause it to work hard and then snap off in a wall, and then arc can cause fires.
And it's mainly a fire hazard.
It's
It is a
100%
fire.
fire hazard.
100%, yeah.
Yeah. And I've got popped with like live knob and tube over there in East Hill. Like I've been crawling around in the attic, and it's just like some old like electric chair looking wire hanging out there, you know?
Oh yeah.
In an attic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you know, the fun,
Wake you up a little bit.
Yeah. This chasing sunset as a home inspector is super fun, man.
Well, Kevin, you know we are at the end of the session today.
Yeah,
I want to thank you for your time,
Yeah, pleasure.
your knowledge.
Yeah.
I know actually we may have to do a 2.0 with Kevin.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Because we have so many subjects that we can dive more into.
It's definitely big.
And it is something for me on the insurance side. It's very important. And I'm sure, I don't know how it is on the
Well, I
mortgage
mean,
side.
it correlates to us. I mean, because you go in, you do the inspection, which has a profound impact on the insurance.
Sure.
And what that really does to me is really not the nuts and bolts that we've talked about today, because we're not really mechanically driven to the home unless it just doesn't pass inspection.
Right.
But it could be the difference between somebody qualifying and somebody not. Because of the
Affordability,
cost of
for sure.
the
Yeah.
premium.
Correct.
So it means a lot. And I think the home inspection is probably more important than the consumer realizes, as long as it's done correctly.
Yeah.
Correct. All right, guys. Well, thank you very
Kevin,
much.
thank you.
I appreciate it.
This is fun. Y'all can have me back.
And you can go ahead and say it. Roll Tide if you want to say it.
Roll Tide, roll.
All right, let's cut.
Get him out of here.